It was like visiting a cemetery, pure sadness. That's how one woman described seeing millions of dead honeybees in Dorchester County, South Carolina. And an aerial spray of a pesticide used to control mosquito populations is to blame.
I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that we spray poison from the sky.
Beekeepers in the area say their colonies dropped dead almost immediately after the spray was distributed on Sunday. A bee farm in one town lost about 2.5 million bees on the spot, and its co-owner says she's devastated.
All of my equipment is contaminated, my honey's contaminated, my comb is contaminated. I'm totally shut down.
The pesticide the county used is called Naled. Officials sprayed to kill mosquitoes that carry viruses like Zika and West Nile. Naled has been registered for use in the U.S. since 1959 and is primarily used to control adult mosquitoes. But it is toxic to other insects, birds, fish, and even humans. It's classified as a severe skin and eye irritant and is harmful when ingested or inhaled. Officials told WCIV this was the first time they have sprayed the pesticide from the air. The county normally sprays from the road. They say they gave residents plenty of warning with a newspaper announcement on August 26th and a Facebook post on August 27th. The county administrator did apologize for the incident Tuesday, telling the Charleston Post and Courier, "I am not pleased that so many bees were killed." But residents are looking for more than an apology. A bee activist group started a petition and a hashtag to end Naled spraying in the county. There are many chemical-free alternatives to pesticides that can help repel mosquitoes. To learn more about these methods and other information on pesticides, visit nospray.org. For Newsy, I'm Jay Struberg.
Our first responders are still working around the clock to help people, and we will keep you updated as changes. Some of the state's hardest hit areas were along the Gulf Coast, as you would expect. In Taylor County, the storm surge was in excess of 9 feet, bringing water well into the coastal communities and causing extensive damage. Heroes across our state answered the call last night to help those in need. For example, in Pasco County, fire and rescue personnel and sheriff's deputies rescued 18 people from rising floodwaters and got them to safety. In Hernando County, Fish and Wildlife officers rescued families from flooded areas. Marion County Sheriff Gainey, no major issues. He did tell me that one homeless man in Marion County was hit by a tree and passed away. Earlier this morning, the Florida National Guard deployed reconnaissance teams. They're beginning in Crystal River and working their way up the coast. There are special forces who are doing search and rescue. We have 6,000 National Guardsmen who are stand ready to assist our state. Florida Wildlife Commission have conducted search and rescue missions with high water vehicles in multiple counties. At least 59 shelters were operational last night, serving around approximately 300 Floridians. These shelters will continue to offer assistance to residents as
Though we know much more about Zika after the first 7 months, there's still an urgent need to continue sustained and global research, and this still does remain an emergency of international concern. But there was much discussion in the committee and actually with the Director General and with Peter about the fact that this extraordinary event is rapidly becoming, unfortunately, an ordinary event, and that Zika is beginning to spread or continuing to cause outbreaks in many countries around the world. Brazil reported, first off, that in fact during the Olympics, and since the Olympics have been over and as they're preparing for the Paralympics, there have been no athletes or any participants who have come to their attention with sickness that is Zika infection. And this is just good public health, good common public health. And until people understand that they have to assume responsibility for this on their own, protect themselves using repellents, long sleeves, long pants, making sure that they stay away from areas where they could be bit by mosquitoes if they're pregnant, this is the most important tool that we have, knowledge and information.
Tropical storm Hermine could also have a devastating effect on Florida's fight against Zika. There's concern the heavy rainfall and high winds will sideline efforts to control mosquitoes. And for the first time, officials have trapped mosquitoes carrying the virus in the continental United States. The insects were found within the Miami Beach Zika zone. And Michelle Miller is here with how officials are responding. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning. The discovery of Zika inside those mosquitoes confirms that the insects are in fact spreading the virus here in the United States. And as Hurricane Hermine hits Florida, where 49 people have been infected by local transmission, the state's governor is bracing for the impact.
We've got to get rid of standing water. That's the most important thing we can do now and after this storm hits.
In the lead up to Hurricane Hermine, Florida officials have been relentless, removing even the smallest traces of water to stop the spread of Zika.
I think all of us expected that there would be mosquitoes carrying Zika.
After inspecting nearly 2,500 samples, Florida officials identified the virus in 3 groups of mosquitoes trapped in Miami Beach, a first in the continental United States.
If there are positive traps, we know when, we know where, all right? We can identify where this transmission is occurring.
One of those positive traps was at the Miami Beach Botanical Garden, which is temporarily closed while crews remove its featured bromeliad plants. The flowers collect water where mosquitoes can breed.
One mosquito larvae there.
And while Hurricane Hermine could drop more than a foot of rain in parts of the state, scientists say its impact on mosquitoes is a double-edged sword.
The good news about hurricanes is they can wash away a mosquito population. The downside is that the hurricane will interrupt any ongoing efforts at mosquito control, and then as the floodwaters recede, we could see the reappearance of mosquitoes.
Another problem Florida is facing is fighting Zika is the cost. The director of the CDC said this week that funds have almost run out. The House will consider a $1.1 billion Zika bill when it returns from vacation next week. Nora?
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
At least a dozen people have been killed and over 50 injured in 2 bomb blasts in Pakistan's northwest. The explosions occurred outside a district court in Mardan, a city in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The twin bombings followed an attack on a Christian colony near Peshawar. A Yemeni TV reports that at least 9 civilians, including 5 children, have been killed in fresh Saudi airstrikes in Sana'a province. Riyadh launched its deadly aggression on Yemen nearly early last year. Over 9,600, including many women and children, have been killed ever since. French Prime Minister has expressed misgivings over the possible threats from several hundred French nationals who are fighting alongside terrorist groups in the Middle East. Speaking at a conference of French ambassadors in Paris, Manuel Valls warned that 900 other French citizens plan to join terrorists in Iraq and Syria. Protesters have staged an anti-NATO demonstration in the German capital Berlin. The ralliers were holding banners and placards which accused the military alliance of adopting warmongering policies. The demonstrators urged German government to stay away from any war that NATO may unleash, particularly against Russia. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff, who was stripped of her post after being impeached, has filed an appeal with the Supreme Court. The appeal calls for the immediate suspension of the effects of the Senate decision and demands a new trial. Hurricane Hermine has made landfall in the U.S. state of Florida. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says wind gusts are 130 kilometers per hour. Power cuts have hit thousands of homes in northern Florida. A state of emergency has been declared for 51 counties. The Turkish president has defended the country's crackdown on high-ranking judiciary officials following the failed coup back in July. Recep Tayyip Erdogan says the mass detention of judges and prosecutors gives a tremendous relief, paves the way for the implementation of justice, and does not weaken Turkey's judicial system. And the U.S. Department of Treasury has announced a series of new sanctions against Russia over Moscow's alleged involvement in Ukraine and the rejoining of Crimea to Russia in 2014. The sanctions include dozens of Russian companies and individuals, as well as 11 Crimean officials.